Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Office 365 Pulse. This is the part 2 show for our Ignite update. We're going to give you guys all the updates for Microsoft Ignite that are in the rolling out, launched, and canceled category. So everything minus in development, because we did that on yesterday's show. So I am having some internet issues today. So if I suddenly disappear, my wonderful team will roll with all the announcements without me. But we'll go ahead and kick off. I think I started with Tamara yesterday, or maybe Tom. I'm not sure who I started with.
I think you started with me.
You started with me, I think, but I begged off the one that I was thinking about taking because I knew that would irritate Tamara. So,
well, I'm going to give you the opportunity to do that again, Tom. Go ahead, Tom. Tell us what you love. Tell us. We'll start with the rolling out category.
I haven't had a chance to talk to her. I'm in big trouble here. So there's a couple up at the top of the list here that I'll just go ahead and touch on to get things started. One is open and review mode for Word Online. So if you're using Word Online right now, what you can do is you can actually send people a link and have the document set up such that it's in an open and review mode. And what that means is they can go in and they can review things, suggest changes using track changes features, but they're not going to be able to make untracked changes. This will be huge, especially in a compliance scenario where people are not going to go in and change things after you think you've had everything set up, and pretty soon you have this cute little Easter egg surprise that you weren't planning on when somebody points something out that wasn't there to the best of your knowledge. So that's coming out, that's rolling out right now, so you should see it at some point here, hopefully very soon. And then the one that we had right underneath that is for SharePoint and Teams, folder in site visibly connected to channel. I just checked right before, we still don't have this yet, but this is something that has a release date of June of 2019. And I really thought we'd have funny looking folders. Could even be golden folders. You knew I was going to go there, Jen. That would basically allow you to see if you're in the SharePoint side and you see a folder that has some sort of a designation there, that this isn't one you should delete because it's going to screw up something in Teams. So keep an eye open for it. If you start seeing different folder icons, that's probably what you're dealing with right now. So just a heads up there, should be rolling out to your client soon.
I love the review mode. I just instantly thought of the control freak project manager. There was just no, I have to get the engineers in line. And this is the only files they now share out internally.
Yeah. Very cool.
I like it. All right, go ahead, Adam. Tell us something cool.
Something nerdy, because we all know where I'm going to go with this. So there's a couple things that I thought was kind of neat. One, this is actually something that I've already seen in my tenant. I think it's really cool and just love to see them integrating it in. Azure AD is basically starting to sync and work with some of the passwordless login features that come native with some of the things that you have. Specifically, if you have Face ID with the iPhone or with Android, where it does some of the recognition like that. And they're now starting to integrate that some natively with the Microsoft apps. And so going through, one of the things I now do when I have conditional access, so with all of my customers, I turn on conditional access for multi-factor authentication, and I push a notification to my phone. One of the things I can now do is have it look for my Face ID, which again, that's more secure than even just having basic two-factor authentication. So security side, always like to see that stuff coming through. That is actually rolling out. So again, I already have it in a lot of my tenants. Everyone should be seeing that coming kind of soon, which is kind of neat. And then another one that I know I've spoken of previously, but it's now moved into rolling out, the idea of using user templates whenever you're creating new users. I've had multiple enterprise customers basically throw something together to do this, where they have an API command or something that they're uploading a CSV file that has the information they want. But Microsoft has made it a little bit easier where you can kind of do this, where you create this is our average end user, and maybe it's turning off certain applications, or it's giving them certain licensing models, or giving them certain permissions or whatever. You can basically build out those templates, so then when you're going through to create a user, just say, oh, this is a generic marketing user, or this is a project manager, or whatever. And that gives them the permissions and the applications, the tools that they need. I like to see them doing stuff like this. To me, this is them putting tools and accessibility in the small guys corner, if that makes sense. A lot of smaller companies are not going to have a dev that can go through there and build out a graphed API script that creates the perfect user for them. And if you go to a company, they're going to charge you, 5 figures to go through and put something like that together. So the fact that they're developing something baseline like this, allowing you to save, I think is really cool, and I'm sure we'll save some time for people in the future.
Yep, very cool. All right, Tamara, do you have anything fun?
Yeah, Outlook for Windows, shared calendar improvements. So they're introducing a new service-backed model for sharing calendars with other Office 365 subscribers, and that's going to improve performance and reliability and keep all the calendars in sync. So when you share your calendar, it's going to be more up to date. I've had problems sharing my calendars occasionally, so I'm glad to see this improvement coming. Now, that was slated to release September of 2019, so I think they're a little behind on that. Also in Microsoft Project, there are custom fields at the task level. So the task custom fields enable you to add details to your tasks so you can manage your project more effectively. So fields such as numbers and dates can be created for tasks and shown in the grid view and the task pane. So I'm excited about that. I think that's really going to help organize those special projects that need that additional piece of information that you weren't able to track before. I think project managers are really going to love that.
Very nice.
Yeah, totally. So when that's coming is I think we're going to see Microsoft List is going to become, when we're going to quick edit, it's now going to say edit in grid view. And then along with that, some of the things we're going to be seeing inside of SharePoint is you're going to be able to save a view when you're in grid view so that you can save it and go back to that view. I know, which is a good one, as well as being able to define row and column heights and different things like that, just making it easy, predefined, so that it's easier to work with the data. Sometimes your data is just a little bit wonky and it's easier to have the predefined rows and heights and different things like that. And being able to save it, it's going to be, as Tom would say, that I would say, one of those delighters. So excited to see that one. Excited to see that one coming out.
So I've got a couple a little further down the list here. One is in Excel, natural language queries for ideas in Excel for Mac. So this is something that I think has rolled out to the regular Windows environment before. But if you're using ideas, which is a way to basically say, hey, here's some different insights we see on your data if you're interested, like pivot tables, formulas, charts, stuff like that. They're now going to allow you to use natural language instead of trying to come up with just the right sequence of keywords to find out, how best can I display this data, or how would I do a pivot table in this? It's going to show up and look better for you by just being able to say, I need a pivot table, and it's going to come up. So Mac now has that opportunity. A little side note too, I remember seeing something, I think, in some of the feature notifications coming out, that the ideas in Excel is going to be undergoing a name change here pretty soon, because they found that people weren't using it, and they felt that their telemetry data was saying that they really didn't know what ideas meant. So you may see some changes coming up soon where ideas become something. I don't know.
In PowerPoint, I think they call it design.
Okay, it could be something very much like that.
They have a pane that pops up and it has design suggestions.
Yeah, so keep that in mind.
Which makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
The other one that I saw that I really like is that you're going to be able to add folders to OneDrive, even though they're not in your OneDrive. So you can think of this probably as like a shortcut, where normally you'd have a shortcut to an executable or a file or something like that. This is going to be similar to that concept, where you can take a folder that's been shared with you that may be in Tamara's OneDrive, but it's something that I use consistently. I can now actually put that folder, quote unquote, into my OneDrive, and I will see it there along with all the rest of my content. So I don't have to go out and find, oh my gosh, that was in Tamara's, and do I have a link to it? And let me go out there. Now it's just going to be sitting there along with all your other stuff, and it's going to look like a folder that you can get to. So I'm really happy about that. I think it'll make using OneDrive within an organization much easier, because you don't have to go find things in different places. It's just all in one screen. So
yeah, I'm excited about that too. I'm just too old to remember who's been sharing what with me, where, and when. So it's nice that it's all going to be together.
Totally. One that I know that people have been asking for a lot, I've been seeing a lot of chatter in some different groups I'm in about NDI for Microsoft Teams. This lets the presenter switch out their feed to a professional like broadcasting type tool so that you can use that to switch out your stream, your live stream in. And so that's going to be a great way,
Nice.
especially for people who are doing this. It's just been released out there. I know they're continuing to make some changes to that, but I know that people are pretty excited about that.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'll kind of mention a couple too. I touched on this yesterday when we were talking about some of the stuff that they had added to in development, and similar things that you're seeing them now launching. They're really stepping up their game with some of the ATP functionality and really trying to bring advanced threat protection with Microsoft Defender kind of paired alongside it as like a modern solution to manage and protect people's computers. This is Microsoft really kind of making a play for being not only the productivity solution, but kind of the protection solution. They have Windows 10, they're now bringing Defender up and some things. So a couple things in there. They're now introducing what they call safe document. So it's basically the exact same idea of like safe file or safe attachments or safe links, but actually documents on your computer. So instead of just going to the process of it's in an email and therefore it goes through and looks at the attachment, it's actually going to do the same type of stuff of using Windows Defender to scan for viruses and malware and stuff like that on files that you're trying to access on your computer and doing it in a safe way before it opens for the user. Similarly, a couple other things related to like ATP and some of the advanced stuff that they're doing there. They have what they call new security and compliance alerts. So they're updating some of the metadata associated with some of the alerts that already happen. Any of you guys who deal with the security stuff or just admins for the tenants as a whole, you can set alerts of, hey, when this happens, yell at me so I know I should be concerned. They're just putting in more relevant data in there. So you have, the actual files that were compromised, the actual stuff like that, which is just nice to see them still tweaking that. And another one that I think it's kind of funny because you can do this manually, but it seems like no one knows how to do this manually anymore. They have mail latency summary reports where you can basically go in, and I'm sure what it's doing is basically just grabbing the header information from an email, but it'll basically go through and analyze how long a message took to get from one place to another and kind of highlight the areas that it's being slow or causing issues to help you better diagnose it. And again,
Nice.
anyone from back in the day that had to do this manually through message headers, you could go through and kind of transcribe it, but like I'm sure this is much easier, and putting a tool like that just at the hands of people, that's something that's still, prior to this coming out, I was using websites like MX Toolbox and stuff like that to look at email headers. Putting something that just does that for you out of the box in Microsoft just makes sense to already have that included in some of the other stuff they're doing. So just happy to see them continuing to develop, continuing to roll that out. And specifically kind of with the first update, I'm excited to see where they take Windows Defender with all of this, because looking at some of the security things that you can do, I very much think a year from now, 2 years from now, it's going to be pretty commonplace that most organizations are buying one Microsoft 365 SKU that not only has Windows 10, but also has Defender, and they're managing all their devices through Microsoft Endpoint Manager. And it's basically just a one-stop shop that completely controls and protects and secures your environment, which to me, like why I don't personally use Windows Defender right now, a system that's all integrated like that, I'm sure is going to be smarter and more intelligent than what I'm using today. So I welcome our Microsoft overlord.
Bum, 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 bum,
Oh
bum.
my. Oh
Well,
my.
speaking of a one-stop shop, Outlook on the web now, you can add a personal calendar. So I think this is going along the lines of Microsoft trying to help people get that work-life balance so that you can have your personal calendar and your professional calendar in one place on your O365 account. And so with this, you can see both kind of events in one place, and it's available in targeted release, and it's rolling out to standard. And they say in late May, so it should be out, but I haven't seen it yet. So, but that's one thing I'm excited for, because I just put everything on my professional calendar and then lock the personal stuff.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
So that way I don't have to go back and forth between two calendars. And then one other thing that came out at night that I was really excited about, and it really made me laugh because we had this technology on the Next cell phones that we used when I ran an environmental company is the Walkie-Talkie feature in Microsoft Teams. So the Walkie-Talkie feature is a push-to-talk experience that enables clear, instant, and secure voice communication over the cloud, turning the employee or company-owned Android smartphones and tablets into walkie-talkies. So it's a native built-in app in Teams, reduces the number of devices that employees must carry, and helps lower IT costs. So customers who currently use analog radio devices will no longer need to worry about static, crosstalk, and eavesdropping from outsiders, who are nor do they have to worry about the limited range of a radio, as walkie-talkie works over Wi-Fi or over cellular data even. And so this is for the first line workers not yet enabled with the for the first line workers not yet enabled with the push to talk experience. The walkie-talkie in Teams enables instant team communication with pre-configured channels set to have the right conversations with the right people. So I really like that walkie-talkie thing, but I got to tell you, we had this back in the 90s. With these cell phones, where they were cell phones, but they were also just push-to-talk walkie-talkies, but they were about the size of the World War II walkie-talkies. So, I mean,
Tamara and Adam, I'm going to say this now, we're never going to have a need to walkie-talkie each other.
No.
I'm in complete support of not being able to be walkie-talkied by my boss at 3 a.m.
Adam, over, out.
I would learn all my employees' pets' names and walkie-talkie and just start talking to their pets in the middle of the night to wake everybody up.
Exactly. So that's going to screw up work-life balance for everybody.
Well, let me pull back things into a more professional mode now. This is something that had a release of March 2020, and I thought we had seen this prior to this, but apparently not, because now it's rolling out. And that's the Team Outlook email integrations. So they're going to make it a lot easier now, where if you're in Outlook, you can share an Outlook email into Teams in a channel. If you have something going on in an email and you want to bring that into a larger conversation, pop that over into Teams. Also, conversely, if you're in Teams and you have a conversation going in there, but you want to bring somebody in, or you want to kind of let somebody know what's going on, you can take that particular conversation and email it to somebody. So I like the idea that you can start to bring things that are not in Teams, which is supposed to be your central workplace, into Teams just by bringing in an email that may be pertinent or may have some information that you want to share in a larger discussion. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I want to play with it, see if it's out there, and then start making sure our groups know about that, because I think that's going to be a very popular feature.
I'd like to see if that feature is going to work in environments where you can't invite external users. So that way, if there is a conversation going on that your external users need to know about, that you can email it to them. So I'll be interested in that feature if it's going to be available in those instances.
That could be very interesting, yes.
Awesome. Well, I think I'm going to switch us over to the launch category just because of time. So hopefully we cover.
Hang on.
Go ahead and cover one more. We'll let Tamara go one more.
For my records management friends out there, proof of disposal. Customers will be able to access a list of records disposed in their tenant after they have been deleted. So this is great for people who have to do audits and things like that. So having that record of disposal is just... it's fabulous. Okay, now we can move on.
Okay. Now we will go to the launch category. So this means it has launched. It should be available in all of the clouds that are referenced. And so the first one I'm going to talk about, usually this means enterprise unless it explicitly says GCC, GCC High, and Education. But this one is Visio as a tab inside of Microsoft Teams. So to make it easier to collaborate on Visio diagrams with teams and have a better experience, you can have that as a team. So that's a great feature that is launched there. So I'll kind of start us out with that one. And who wants to go next?
I do.
Go for it.
um, a lot of the things in the launched area, I know we've talked about before. I think that
Yeah, probably
Microsoft may
many
have been doing a
times, waiting
little
for
bit of
them.
cleanup. Yeah. And this is one I know I've talked about in the past, but I'm going to re-mention it here because I think it is really freaking cool. And that is on Word for the web, you're now going to have transcription. So you can feed in an audio file, or you can talk directly into the microphone feature for Word for the web, and it's going to transcribe that audio directly into Word. I think the point that I made when I talked about it was, wow, if I'm a transcriber, I'm scared to death on this feature because it may not be as good as a professional transcriber for first pass, but if you just want to get a real quick one out there, if you've got information, or your fingers are dead tired or whatever, they're broken, you can now do transcription, get your content out there, and then clean up the content instead of trying to type it and create it and think about it and the whole bit at the same time. I think this is kind of a game changer in terms of, you had the whole what was it, Dragon Voice, or the software
Dragon.
that would enable you to do those kind of things. I think it's very similar to this, but now it's kind of built into everything. You don't have to try to use a third-party piece of software to pull this off. So really excited to check this one out.
I think this is going to be great for when you're brainstorming how to say different things, and you have that brilliant idea and it comes out of your mouth, but nobody wrote it down. And then they're like, can you repeat it? And you're like, absolutely not. I think this will be great for that situation. Tom, I know you run into that a lot when you're working with Sandra.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she'll call and say, hey, I need help wording. I'm like, okay, I can do words here. And she'll, okay, we need to do a policy for blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, professional policy, da 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 da. And this stuff just comes right off the top of my head. Sounds awesome. Sounds so professional. She goes, that's great. Can you slow down so I can get it? It's like, nope, it's out now. I'm done. I don't remember what I said. All I remember is it sounded really awesome coming out of my mouth. Well, now with transcription, you can basically capture that, and you don't have to go back and try to recreate what for me was always a useless effort, because it's like it never sounded good the second time.
For me in launch this time, I have stuff all over the board of just kind of like cool things that, oh, hey, it's nice to see that, or, oh, cool, I'm glad to see this coming. I'm going to start with one that's pretty simple. They have screen recording and editing in Microsoft Stream. So my favorite feature, bar none, up until this point in Office 365 was screen capture in the PowerPoint desktop client. That was my go-to whenever I was, doing a presentation with someone. I was like, have an extra 5 minutes. Oh, hey, did you know this existed here? Because so many people didn't know it was there. And having just an easy way to go through and capture your screen was great. Well, they're basically adding that and more into Stream. Not only can you do quick screen captures, but you can do stuff with your mic, with your webcam, and they even do apply like light edits to the stuff too. So being able to just go through and do quick recordings, especially for people in the IT world, or just especially now with COVID and working from home, how often we've been trying to work with someone and just be so much easier to like give them a quick recording of what you did, where you maybe don't want to do a full-on meeting or something like that. Just being able to go in there and do that quickly is awesome. And I see this again as kind of a step towards bringing Stream into the relevancy with all the other products. Stream has been great, but it's kind of been like Power Apps in the sense that you have one person out of 30 that likes it and uses it, and most companies don't. I think this is stuff along the lines of making it a tool to make stuff like quick videos and stuff more accessible to the common man type of a thing. And so just happy to see it coming through.
And I think it's great that you can trim the videos, because a lot of times you'll forget to stop the recording, and then it'll go on to the conversation that you had after the part that's relative. So I like that it has that ability to trim.
Yeah, we used to do short little training videos at work. Sandra and I would do them, and we'd use Snagit. It was like, okay, countdown, 3, 2, 1. Now here we're script stop. So we had all the outtakes, but this would have been nice just to have it in Stream and be able to say, okay, capture what I'm doing. Here we go, and just have it all in native to the environment.
Yep. Some of the other things that are coming out that I know people have been waiting for a long time, so it's nice to see out, is the SharePoint sites audience targeting and site navigation. So the ability to do audience targeting and the modern audience targeting for hub sites and communication sites. That's really great to be able to streamline that. So I know people who are doing some things with intranets are going to be super excited to see that finally launched and available.
I like that in SharePoint and in OneDrive and Teams, file upload limits are going up to 100 gig. Now,
file,
remember,
yeah.
This is a limit. This is not a goal.
It's not a challenge.
This is going to make stuff like SharePoint and OneDrive and Teams more viable for like engineering companies that have giant CAD files and stuff like that. So kind of cool. I have 3 that I can bundle together kind of as like similar-ish. So first and foremost, sensitivity labels. So if you go through and you have labels that you've created that you want to apply to stuff, that's now being applicable to Teams as a whole. So even going through and talking about some of the channels and stuff that you do with Teams. So having that functionality extended into there is great. For companies that need to protect CUI data and stuff like that, having the ability to do that is really, really cool. 2 other sensitivity label-esque things that I think also make sense. For the first time, they're going through and actually extending manual classification of sensitivity labels to Office on the web. So before this, if you wanted to go through and apply sensitivity labels to documents of stuff that you'd created, you wanted to manually do it, you had to do it through the desktop client, and you had to have an add-in that you downloaded and integrated in. It was honestly kind of a mess. Making it so that you have the ability to go through and apply these custom labels through the web client is going to make this so much more approachable and attainable for especially a lot of smaller companies to be able to go through and apply those things. Because if you don't have an IT staff and I'm trying to convince someone how they need to roll out a policy through group policy to their users or something, it's not an easy sell. So going through and being able to do this through the web client now is something that's really cool that they haven't done before. And then the final one, I'm sure Jenn and Tamara have probably heard this before, but nice to see. The AIP scanner, which is basically a tool that you can download that's designed to classify file storage systems that you have locally that are not in the cloud, is actually available and launched fully for GCC and GCC High. So if you're in the government cloud, and a lot of our customers in the government cloud maybe had some legacy file systems, you now actually have the ability to have the AIP scanner and going through and running that, which is wonderful. So.
One that I wanted to bring forth, because I remember when I first did a tip on this one, I thought, this is great, but there's a glaring hole, and this actually cleans it up. And that is in Microsoft Teams, you can actually do channel cross-posting. So if, Bob brought donuts into the break room, you can tell this is a pre-COVID example. Bob brought donuts into the thing. Hey, everybody go get some. Instead of just putting it out to one channel, you could put that out and say, and cross-post it to these other 4. So everybody gets a Russian donuts. But if you wanted to then say, hey, everybody, sorry, donuts are gone, you were pretty much
couldn't edit it,
out of luck. It's like, well, you can edit in the one, but you better remember everywhere else you did it because you're going to have to go edit them all manually. Now you can actually do editing in cross-posts. So in addition to editing a message, you can also add or remove channels. So if you let 5 teams or 5 channels know that there are donuts in the break room and you forgot the executive suite because they love their donuts, now you can actually bring that in. They see the copy of it and you don't have to go out and recreate it. So I think that's a really cool thing. It really addresses a gap that they had in the initial rollout of that feature. So cool stuff.
One thing I like that they're doing with Visio is they're making it easier to work with multiple page documents so that now you can drag pages and position them anywhere in your file. And there's also a page navigation list, which gives you a one-shot view of all the pages in the current file so that you can use it to navigate non-sequentially through the pages. And also you can create a copy of an existing page or insert a blank page anywhere in your file. Now, I have to tell you, when I first read this, I accidentally read it as now you can drag and drop pages and position them anywhere in your life. And I thought that's going to be really convenient. But Microsoft has not gone that far. It's just within your file. So not within your entire life.
Awesome. Well, SharePoint's got one with Fluent design updates for coherence. So Fluent is a design standard, and so they are using that across Office 365. And so you're going to see some things on SharePoint pages that are going to be nice, subtle changes, rounded corners, shadings, bigger,
Fonts a
bolder
little different.
fonts,
Yeah.
little different things. So no, you are not going crazy. No, Betty in accounting is not going crazy. Yes, it probably did change.
Let's not go as far as
So,
Betty, okay? Betty may
yeah.
be going crazy, but
But
not over
not because
this.
of this.
Yeah, so you haven't lost your mind. It did change. It's probably subtle. You may or may not notice. Probably not anything significant that you need to be overly concerned about. They're trying to make it cohesive and make it the same across all of Office 365. These are actually good changes, and it's going to be nice, modern changes. Really just modernizing a lot of some of the older legacy things that are there. So honestly, you may or may not notice. Users may or may not notice. It will probably be like, hey, this looks like that now. So you'll see that there, but that is there.
Well,
For
and
me,
under
it
the
was
hood, it's making it more accessible too. So people
true.
with different
Definitely.
abilities, the screen reader will have a better time reading because SharePoint is not so friendly with a screen reader.
Yeah, for me, it was more of a thing of I remember looking at a SharePoint page going, that looks different, but nobody edited it. I'm not quite sure what is different, but it looks different. And then finally I caught on as what was going on. One really quick one for me, Microsoft Teams, they've got a new lobby setting, which is only the organizer joins the meeting directly. So sometimes you have situations where you want to have people hit the lobby first so you can kind of pre-screen who's coming in. Now you can basically set up a meeting and says, only me in terms of an option of who can bypass the lobby. So you set the meeting up, you get to bypass the lobby, but everybody else is going to be held in the lobby until you let them in, both people from internal or external to the organization. So that can give you a little bit more control in your meeting, especially if it's one that may be dealing with sensitive information. And we just lost Jenn.
One of the things I'd really like to see with the lobby, and I've got to check user voice on this, is bulk letting people into the meeting.
Oh, that
So
would
you
be
don't
nice.
have to do each individual user, because if you get a meeting and it's a huge number of people and you have the lobby turned on, it is just a huge pain in the bippy to let each one in individually.
Pain in the bippy. I have not heard the word bippy in like.
Bippy is a euphemism for elbow.
Okay. So I'm mistaken. Let's carry on.
All right.
Just to make people aware, in case they're not, a new version of the Exchange Online module launched. So Exchange Online Module V2. Big change more than anything is you're no longer going to do stuff like get mailbox, get recipient. It's get EXO for Exchange Online before on that stuff. They say the commands are quicker, they're more accurate, they take less RAM, stuff like that. But I'm sure this will become the norm. But we all have the wonderfulness to look forward to for the next 2 years or so, that anytime you go and look up documentation online, it's going to be a cluster, whether it's in the new one or the old one. And yeah, who knows? But Exchange Online Module V2 did launch and is live now. I haven't messed around with it, but probably worth knowing that it's out there if you're an Exchange admin.
And in Microsoft Teams, OneNote integration. So users will have the ability to add a OneNote notebook tab to their team channels. And this is in education, this is in GCC, DOD, and they call out Germany by itself.
Germany is its own special cloud because of how they do stuff with privacy and laws.
Oh, okay.
So Germany is its own special region in Europe.
Okay. And GCC High in all the environments. So this is rolling out, and this was supposed to have rolled out in March of 2020. So expect to see it soon.
One other thing that's going on with Teams too is you'll now have the ability to include up to 10,000 users in an individual team. I remember when I first saw that, I thought, so help me, if anybody ever invites me to a team that has 10,000 users, I am immediately leaving it, because no, I don't want to be part of that. However, when they put here, they say, we're excited for this increase in team membership to power collaboration and process scenarios, especially for large teams and organizations that rely on first line workers. That actually makes sense to me. It's still seems to be a little overkill for me. And unless you have like moderation set up and stuff like that, I can see where it'd get out of control really easily. But if you're in a use case where you have a need for over 5,000, which was your limit before, and you want to go up to something higher than that, you can now make it 10,000. So that's good.
Yeah, I've got a client with 600,000 people. And so the 5,000 limit was really just too small for some of the
Right.
teams. And you couldn't do an organizational wide team because of the number of people that are in there. So this gets us a little bit closer. But I think you're right. I think this is one of those features where you should use your powers for good and have a moderator or several moderators in there,
Yeah.
keeping track and making sure that people are responding to posts as opposed to starting new conversations to respond to a post,
Exactly.
to make sure that things are staying on topic. You know, an old-fashioned bulletin board moderator.
Yeah,
That
I
person
have
who has no life.
I have a client that has 2 people, and they're probably really excited about the 10,000 limit being increased as well too for teams.
Good.
Anything else you guys wanted to cover? I think we're going through most of it.
Yeah, I'm pretty much at the end of my list. So if we called it good, I would be perfectly happy with that.
I'll give a nerdy shout out. If anyone has to do this, they're basically adding commands into the Microsoft Graph to make you be able to hide or show groups in Outlook. Doing this before was a combination of if the group was set to private or not. Setting a group to private had other implications than just if you could see it in the address book and stuff like that. So what I really think this is useful for, Microsoft has changed their dance a little bit over groups over time. For a while, they by default came with Exchange Online and had email addresses associated with it. They eventually unmarried or uncoupled those together where it didn't have to, but you have the option to choose it similar to how it came by default with Teams originally, and now it's somewhat uncoupled. I see this useful for organizations that maybe have a 3, 4, 5-year-old Office 365 account that maybe have groups that are just, clogging up their address book, but they've never wanted to go back and micromanage those and remove those. There's now basically Graph API commands that can very easily do that with a Boolean true-false statement. And so you could basically run a script that just goes through and hides all your groups from your gal or something like that. Right. And makes it probably a little bit more useful as a gal for you again, too. So anything else from your side, Tamara?
Microsoft Teams usage reporting for GCC high tenants is rolling out or is launched. So the Microsoft Team user activity and device usage reports helps you understand the team's activity and the platforms it's being used on in your tenants. And this is being added to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center for GCC high tenants. This wasn't something that they had available before, so it was really hard to tell if you were actually getting traction in your teams. You just have to go like, yep, I think so.
Yeah, GCC as a whole is getting a little bit of love here. I also saw, for instance, one of the updates was they finally are now getting the 9 video screen. Where, if you can remember back to the beginning of COVID when you guys were doing stuff in Teams, you just had the four corners, and then now it's 9. You can get all the way up to 49 now in commercial. Well, our government friends are still at 4, so they finally now have fully launched where they can be up to 9 and be a little bit more inclusive in their meetings as well. So.
Well, in the GCC high environment, though, most of the computers have their webcams turned off.
Yeah.
So that really wasn't a deal. So now you can see 9 people without webcams.
9 black boxes. Yeah.
9 black boxes with initials. So that's awesome.
Oh, too funny.
But yeah, guys, so obviously it's been massive updates. We went for over an hour yesterday, and we're right at 40-something minutes today. So a ton of updates coming through, and what we really did focus on was the roadmap, which is kind of the bread and butter of what we do here at the Microsoft 365 Pulse. We didn't even get into all of this fancy features and stuff that they announced that maybe are not fully represented in the roadmap. But regardless, there's obviously a ton of change and a ton of stuff coming through. I'm sure we'll be discussing a lot more stuff at length in the coming weeks. Hopefully you guys enjoyed going through the updates with us. You wanted to hop in, Tamara?
I just wanted to say that 2 things have been canceled. And that's Microsoft Stream, the public APIs, and the Outlook iOS. See Outlook calendar details in the Watch OS 7. The Watch OS 7, that feature is a duplicate of 1, and so it's being removed from the roadmap.
Yeah, and the Stream one's being reduced because the new features they announced at Ignite for Stream takes care of it without needing an API.
Total overhaul there, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, both the things that are canceled are basically redundant. You're not actually losing the features; they're just coming elsewhere. But regardless, guys, we appreciate it. Hopefully, you made it through both sessions. You learned some cool things. I know we all enjoy going through and looking at the updates, figuring out the ones we like, and talking about it. Hopefully, y'all can learn stuff with us. And if nothing else, we'll see everyone next week. Thank you so much for joining us.
That's good. Bye, everyone.
Bye now.